The story of tattoos begins in the icy grip of the Italian Alps, where in 1991, hikers stumbled upon a discovery that rewrote history. Ötzi the Iceman, a 5,300-year-old mummy preserved in glacial ice. Ötzi, named after the Ötztal Alps, where he was found, bears the oldest known human tattoos, 61 simple markings of lines and crosses etched into his leathery skin with a technique as primal as the world he inhabited. These tattoos weren't decorative but medicinal, likely intended to alleviate the pain of arthritis, a condition revealed by Ötzi's skeletal remains. The process was rudimentary. Small incisions were made with a sharp flint tool, and charcoal was rubbed into the wounds, embedding the pigment beneath the skin. The air in those ancient alpine valleys would have been crisp, smelling of pine and frost, the silence broken only by the crackle of a fire and the scrape of stone against flesh. Ötzi's people, late Neolithic hunter-gatherers, lived a harsh life, their days filled with the hunt for deer and ibex, their nights spent huddled in fur-lined shelters. Tattoos, in this context, were a form of survival, a desperate attempt to ease the body's aches in a world without medicine. Ötzi's discovery, near the modern border of Austria and Italy, offers a glimpse into a time when body art was not about aesthetics, but about enduring the brutal realities of prehistoric life. His tattoos, found on his lower back, legs, and wrists, areas corresponding to acupuncture points, suggest a sophisticated understanding of the body, predating Chinese acupuncture by millennia. The charcoal, likely sourced from burnt wood, would have been ground into a fine powder, its gritty texture a stark contrast to the smooth, cold skin of the Iceman. Ötzi's life, ending violently around 3250 BCE, evidenced by an arrowhead in his shoulder and a skull fracture, was one of constant struggle, against the elements, against predators, and against the frailties of his own body. His tattoos, preserved by the ice that encased him for over 5 millennia, are a testament to humanity's earliest attempts to mark the body for a purpose beyond mere decoration. This practice, born in the Stone Age, would echo through the ages, evolving with each culture that embraced it. The Alps, with their jagged peaks and frozen silence, became an unlikely cradle for the history of tattoos, a history that Ötzi's frozen flesh has kept alive for us to uncover. In the sun-scorched deserts of ancient Egypt, around 2000 BCE, tattoos emerged as a sacred shield for women navigating the perils of childbirth. The mummies of these women, unearthed from the necropolises of the Memphite region near Lisht, reveal a practice steeped in mysticism and maternal protection. Concentrated on their abdomens, thighs, and breasts, these tattoos, geometric patterns, dots, and depictions of the goddess Bes, protector of women and households, were likely applied using soot mixed with breast milk, a concoction believed to hold magical properties. The air in an Egyptian village would have been thick with the scent of Nile mud, lotus flowers, and burning incense, as midwives prepared their ink under the watchful eyes of Bes statues. The process was painful. A bronze needle, dipped in the soot milk mixture, pierced the skin repeatedly, leaving behind patterns that shimmered faintly against the sun-darkened flesh. These women, often from the Middle Kingdom's working classes, lived lives of labor, grinding grain, weaving linen, and tending to children under the relentless sun. Childbirth, a leading cause of death, was a battle against the unseen forces of disease and misfortune, and tattoos were their armor. Bes, with his lion-like face and protective aura, was a constant presence in their homes, his image carved into amulets and painted on walls. The tattoos, often found on female figurines like those at the Met Museum, suggest a widespread practice, possibly linked to fertility cults. Archaeologists note that these markings were not merely decorative, but ritualistic, a plea for divine intervention during the vulnerable moments of labor. The Nile's annual floods, bringing life to the desert, mirrored the life these women sought to protect through their inked prayers. In the necropolis, the silence was broken only by the whisper of sand and the distant chant of priests as the tattooed bodies of these women were laid to rest, their protective markings a testament to their faith. This practice, born in the shadow of the pyramids, reveals a society where body art was a bridge to the divine, a stark contrast to the decorative tattoos of later cultures. The legacy of these Egyptian women, their skin a canvas of survival, would influence tattooing. Traditions across the ancient world, from Nubia to the Levant, where similar protective symbols have been found on female remains. Around 500 BCE, the nomadic Scythian tribes of Siberia roamed the vast steppes north of the Black Sea, their lives a constant dance between survival and warfare. Herodotus, the Greek historian, described them as fierce warriors, their bodies adorned with elaborate tattoos that told stories of status and spiritual connection. Preserved in the frozen Pazyryk burial mounds of the Altai Mountains, these Scythian bodies reveal tattoos of mythological creatures, griffins, deer, and feline predators, inked with bone needles and natural pigments derived from plants and minerals. The air in a Scythian encampment would have been sharp with the scent of horse sweat, burning wood, and the tang of fermented mare's milk, a staple of their diet. The tattooing process was a communal ritual, often performed during the long, dark winters, as the tribe gathered in felt yurts, the flickering firelight casting shadows on the tattooist's work. A bone needle, dipped in a pigment of ground ochre and soot, pierced the skin repeatedly, creating designs that spiraled across the warrior's arms, legs, and chest. These tattoos were not mere decoration, but markers of identity, proof of tribal affiliation and rank, as well as a bridge to the animal spirits that guided their nomadic existence. A deer tattoo, for instance, might symbolize speed and survival, while a feline predator denoted ferocity in battle. The Scythians, known for their horsemanship and archery, lived a life of constant movement, their herds grazing across the endless grasslands, their enemies, be they rival tribes or encroaching empires, always a threat. Death was ever present, and the burial mounds, packed with ice, preserved not only their tattooed bodies but also their horses, weapons, and intricate textiles, offering a window into their world. Tattoos in Scythian culture were a form of eternal storytelling, ensuring that a warrior's legacy endured beyond the grave. The Pazyryk tattoos discovered in the 20th century are among the most detailed of their time, their preservation, a stroke of luck in the frozen Siberian climate. This practice reflects a broader trend among ancient nomadic peoples, from the Thracians to the Sarmatians, where body art was a language of power and spirituality, a tradition that would influence tattooing across Eurasia for centuries to come. In the rugged lands of ancient Thrace, modern-day Bulgaria, around 400 BCE, tattoos were a badge of nobility, particularly among women of high status. The Greek historian Herodotus noted that for the Thracians, to be tattooed is a sign of noble birth, while no tattoos signify lower status. These women, often priestesses or members of the aristocracy, adorned their limbs and faces with elaborate patterns, transforming their bodies into canvases of religious devotion and social standing. The air in a Thracian forest clearing would have been alive with the scent of wildflowers, pine resin, and the smoke of sacrificial fires, as these women gathered for tattooing rituals under the watchful gaze of their gods. The technique was unique. Threads coated with dye, likely extracted from plants like woad or madder, were pulled beneath the skin, creating intricate designs that ranged from geometric spirals to floral motifs. The process was agonizing. The needles prick a test of endurance as the dye seeped into the flesh, leaving behind patterns that glowed faintly against the Thracian sun. These women lived in a society where warfare and ritual were intertwined. Thracian warriors were famed for their ferocity, their gold jewelry and bronze weapons a testament to their wealth. Women, however, held spiritual power, serving as intermediaries between the mortal and divine, their tattoos a visible sign of their sacred role. A priestess might bear tattoos covering her entire arm, each spiral a prayer to the goddess Bendis, protector of the hunt and moon. Thracian villages, nestled in the Balkan Mountains, buzzed with life. Children played with clay toys, men forged weapons in smoky smithies, and women wove textiles dyed with the same plants used for their tattoos. Death was a grand affair, with burials accompanied by feasts and sacrifices, the tattooed bodies of the elite laid to rest with their finest adornments. The tattoos, preserved on rare ceramic figurines and described in Greek texts, reveal a culture where body art was a privilege, a stark contrast to later societies where tattoos would become marks of shame. The Thracian practice influenced neighboring cultures, from the Dacians to the Illyrians, where similar tattooing traditions emerged, blending with local beliefs. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Thrace's wild landscapes, underscores the diversity of ancient body art, where ink was a symbol of power, piety, and prestige. In ancient China, during the Zhou dynasty around 300 BCE, tattoos took on a darker role. They became tools of punishment, branding criminals with permanent symbols of their crimes. Known as qi pei, this practice involved tattooing characters on the face, often the forehead or cheeks, using bone needles and natural indigo dye extracted from plants like woad. The air in a bustling Zhou marketplace would have been thick with the scent of steamed buns, horse dung, and the faint metallic tang of blood as a criminal was publicly marked, his shame displayed for all to see. The characters, meticulously inked, might read thief or murderer, each stroke a condemnation etched into the skin, the indigo dye a stark contrast against the pale flesh. This was a society governed by strict Confucian ideals, where order and morality were paramount, and crime was a stain on the collective harmony. Criminals once tattooed were ostracized, their faces a walking testament to their disgrace, often barred from returning to their villages. The Zhou dynasty, a time of feudal fragmentation, saw constant warfare between states, with peasants toiling in rice paddies and artisans crafting bronze vessels for the elite. The tattooing process was a public spectacle, performed in the marketplace. Under the watchful eyes of magistrates, the crowd's murmurs a chorus of judgment. The bone needle, dipped in indigo, pierced the skin with a rhythmic thud. The criminal's flinches, a grim reminder of his fate. This practice, documented in ancient texts like the Book of Han, created a long-standing tattoo taboo in China, a stigma that persists in East Asian cultures today, where tattoos are often associated with criminality. Among the Drung, Dai, and Li peoples, however, tattoos held different meanings. Women of these ethnic groups bore decorative tattoos as symbols of beauty and maturity, a stark contrast to the punitive qi pei. The Zhou marketplaces, with their wooden stalls and silk banners, were centers of trade and gossip, where the tattooed criminal became a cautionary tale, his face a warning to others. This chapter of tattoo history reveals a society where body art was weaponized, a tool of control, in a world of rigid hierarchies, setting the stage for centuries of cultural attitudes toward tattoos in East Asia. In the misty forests of northern Britain around 100 CE, the Picts, named Painted Ones by Roman chroniclers, used tattoos as a weapon of psychological warfare. These fierce warriors covered their bodies with blue woad dye tattoos depicting animals like wolves and boars, as well as celestial symbols like crescent moons and stars, inked with bronze tools and animal bones. The air in a Pictish settlement would have been damp with the scent of wet earth, pine needles, and the acrid tang of woad dye, a plant extract that stained the skin a vivid blue. The tattooing process was a rite of passage, often performed before battle, as warriors gathered around a roaring fire, their chants echoing through the forest. A bronze needle, dipped in woad paste, punctured the skin with a sharp sting, the blue dye seeping into the wounds to create permanent designs that shimmered against the pale Celtic skin. The Picts, a confederation of tribes resisting Roman expansion, lived in roundhouses made of stone and thatch, their days spent hunting deer, forging iron weapons, and raiding Roman outposts. Tattoos were not just decoration, but a declaration of defiance, a way to terrify their enemies, be they Roman legionaries or rival tribes. A wolf tattoo might symbolize ferocity, a crescent moon a connection to the divine. Roman accounts, like those of Julius Caesar and Tacitus, describe the Picts as a fearsome sight, their blue tattooed bodies charging through the mist, their war cries a chilling prelude to battle. The Roman frontier, marked by Hadrian's Wall, was a tense borderland, where the Picts' tattoos became a symbol of resistance against imperial domination. Their settlements, scattered across modern-day Scotland, were fortified with wooden palisades, their lives a constant struggle against the harsh climate and encroaching enemies. The woad plant, harvested from the forest floor, was crushed into a paste, its pungent odor a reminder of the land they fought for. This practice of tattooing, rooted in Celtic traditions, influenced other warrior cultures, from the Britons to the Gauls, where body art became a marker of bravery and identity. The Picts' legacy, preserved in Roman texts and archaeological finds like Pictish stones, reveals a world where tattoos were a battle cry, a tradition that would echo through the ages as body art took on new meanings. In the forested wilds of Hokkaido, Japan, around 300 CE, the indigenous Ainu people developed a tattooing tradition that marked women as sacred beings. Known as anchipiri, these lip tattoos were a rite of passage for Ainu girls, beginning around age 12 and expanding through adulthood. The process involved rubbing soot into incisions made around the mouth, creating designs that framed the lips like a permanent smile, a symbol of maturity, marriage readiness, and protection from evil spirits. The air in an Ainu village would have been crisp with the scent of cedarwood, fish drying on racks, and the faint smoke of a hearth fire, as young girls endured the painful ritual, their muffled cries a testament to their strength. The tattooing took place in a communal longhouse, its wooden walls carved with bear motifs, the Ainu's most sacred animal. A sharp blade, often made of obsidian, sliced the skin, and soot, collected from the hearth, was pressed into the wounds, the black pigment a stark contrast against the pale skin. These tattoos were not just decorative but spiritual, believed to ward off malevolent forces that might harm a woman during childbirth or marriage. Ainu women, central to their matrilineal society, were the keepers of oral traditions, their days spent weaving atush, elm bark textiles, gathering wild herbs, and performing rituals to honor the kamui, spirits. The anchipiri tattoos grew more elaborate with age, extending outward in intricate patterns, a visible sign of a woman's life journey. The Ainu, who also lived in Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands, faced constant pressure from neighboring cultures. Their traditions often misunderstood by the expanding Yamato Japanese. Their tattoos, documented by early anthropologists like John Batchelor, were a form of resistance, a way to preserve their identity in the face of assimilation. The forest, with its towering cedars and bubbling streams, was a sacred space where the Ainu believed the spirits of their ancestors watched over them. The anchipiri tattoos, preserved in rare photographs and oral histories, reveal a culture where body art was a sacred bond, a tradition that would endure despite centuries of marginalization. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Hokkaido's untamed wilderness, highlights the diversity of tattooing practices, where ink was a shield against the unseen. By 800 CE, the Polynesian islanders of the Pacific had perfected a tattooing technique that would become legendary, the tap method. Using sharpened bone combs attached to wooden handles, tattoo artists struck the combs with a mallet, driving pigment deep into the skin with a rhythmic tap-tap-tap that echoed like a drumbeat across the beach. The air on a Polynesian island would have been heavy with the scent of salt water, coconut oil, and blooming hibiscus, as warriors and chiefs gathered for the tattooing ritual, their chants rising above the crash of waves. The pigment, often made from burnt candlenut soot mixed with coconut water, was applied in elaborate geometric patterns that covered large portions of the body, arms, legs, torso, each design a story of family lineage, social rank, and spiritual power. The process was excruciating, the bone comb's teeth piercing the skin repeatedly, the artist's steady hand a testament to years of training. Polynesian society, spread across islands like Samoa, Tonga, and Tahiti, was deeply hierarchical, with chiefs, ali'i, and priests, kahuna, holding immense power. Tattoos were a rite of passage, marking a boy's transition to manhood or a chief's ascension to leadership. A spiral pattern might represent the ocean's endless cycle. Triangle, the strength of the family. The tattooing took place on a woven mat under a palm frond canopy, the artist's tools laid out with reverence, bone combs, wooden mallets, and bowls of black pigment. The Polynesians, master navigators who crossed vast oceans in outrigger, canoes, lived in harmony with the sea, their days spent fishing, crafting tapa cloth, and performing hula dances to honor their gods. Tattoos were a sacred bond, linking the bearer to their ancestors and the divine forces of nature. The tap method, documented in 19th century photographs at Te Papa Museum, spread across Polynesia, influencing cultures from Hawaii to the Marquesas. This practice, born in the cradle of the Pacific, would later captivate European explorers, setting the stage for the global spread of tattooing traditions. The Polynesian tattoo, with its bold lines and intricate patterns, remains a living tradition, a testament to the enduring power of body art in the face of colonization and change. Around 1000 CE, the Maori of New Zealand developed a tattooing tradition that transformed the human face into a living historical document, tamoko. Unlike traditional tattooing, tamoko used chisels, uhai, made of albatross bone to carve deep grooves into the skin, creating three-dimensional designs that were as much sculpture as ink. The air in a Maori forest clearing would have been alive with the scent of damp ferns, burning wood, and the faint tang of blood as a Tohunga Tamoko, tattoo artist, worked with precision, the uhi's sharp edge slicing into the flesh. The pigment, often made from burnt kauri gum mixed with animal fat, was pressed into the grooves, creating patterns that glowed against the Maori's tanned skin. Each design was unique, a record of the bearer's genealogy, tribal affiliation, and social status. Spirals for lineage, curves for rank, and lines for personal achievements. The process was agonizing, often taking days, the rhythmic tapping of the uhi against the skin a sacred sound in the forest's silence. Maori society, centered in villages called pa, was deeply communal, with wanao, extended families, working together to fish, farm kumara, sweet potatoes, and carve intricate waka canoes. Tamoko was a rite of passage, marking a warrior's readiness for battle or a woman's eligibility for marriage. A chief might bear a full facial moko, his entire face a map of his ancestry, while a young warrior might start with a single cheek design, adding more as he earned honor. The Maori, who arrived in New Zealand from Polynesia around the 13th century, lived in harmony with the land, their mythology rich with tales of gods like Tane, creator of humans. Tamoko, as described by the World History Encyclopedia, was a sacred art, often accompanied by karakia, prayers, to ensure the bearer's safety during the painful process. The forest, with its towering kauri trees and echoing bird calls, was a fitting backdrop for this ritual, where the past was etched into the present. The legacy of Tamoko, preserved in historical drawings and modern Maori revivals, reveals a culture where tattoos were a language, a tradition that would endure despite colonial attempts to erase it. During the Crusades of the 1100s, European knights journeyed to the Holy Land, returning with more than just tales of battle. They brought back tattoos as proof of their pilgrimage. In the dusty alleys of Jerusalem, Coptic Christian tattooists offered Jerusalem cross tattoos, a design of one large cross surrounded by 4 smaller ones, symbolizing the 5 wounds of Christ. The air in Jerusalem would have been heavy with the scent of frankincense, sun-baked stone, and the sweat of pilgrims as a crusader knelt before a tattooist, his arm bared for the needle. The technique was simple but painful. Wooden needles dipped in lamp-black pigment, soot mixed with oil, were poked into the skin by hand, the black ink forming a stark cross against the crusader's weathered skin. These tattoos were more than decoration. They were a badge of faith, a guarantee of a proper Christian burial if the knight fell in battle, and a permanent reminder of their sacred journey. Crusader life was grueling. Their days spent marching under the scorching sun, their nights in cramped camps, the clank of armor, a constant sound. Jerusalem, a city of stone and faith, was a melting pot of cultures. Muslims, Christians, and Jews coexisted uneasily under the shadow of war. The Coptic tattooists, often working near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, were skilled artisans, their wooden tools and lamp-black ink, a tradition passed down through generations. A knight might bear the Jerusalem cross on his forearm, its lines, a silent prayer for protection as he faced Saracen swords. The tattoo also served a practical purpose. If killed far from home, the cross identified him as a Christian, ensuring burial rites in a foreign land. The Razuk family, Coptic tattooists still active in Jerusalem today, trace their lineage back to this era, using the same designs their ancestors inked on Crusaders. The Crusades, spanning the 11th to 13th centuries, were a time of religious fervor and violence, where tattoos became a bridge between faith and survival. This practice, born in the chaos of holy war, would influence European tattooing traditions as returning knights spread the custom to their homelands, setting the stage for tattoo's evolving role in Western culture. In Japan's Edo period, 1603–1868, tattoos took on a rebellious new meaning as the government banned them, transforming body art into a symbol of defiance. Known as irezumi, these full-body tattoos flourished among merchants, firefighters, and laborers, who embraced the prohibition as a badge of honor. The air in an Edo tattoo parlor would have been thick with the scent of rice paper, lamp-black ink, and the faint tang of sake, as an artist worked by the light of a paper lantern, his hari, needle bundles, attached to a wooden handle. The technique was meticulous. The artist dipped the needles in ink, often vibrant reds, blues, and blacks derived from natural pigments like cinnabar and indigo, and pierced the skin in a rhythmic motion, creating detailed designs of dragons, koi fish, and mythical warriors. The process was grueling, often taking years to complete a full-body suit, the client's muffled groans a testament to their endurance. Edo Japan was a world of strict social order, with samurai at the top and merchants at the bottom, despite their wealth. Tattoos, once used to brand criminals, became a way for the lower classes to reclaim their identity, their bodies a canvas of resistance against the shogunate's rules. A firefighter might bear a dragon tattoo, symbolizing protection from the fires he fought, while a merchant might choose a koi fish, representing perseverance. The tattoo parlors, often hidden in back alleys, were hubs of camaraderie, where clients shared stories of their lives over cups of sake, the artist's steady hand a constant in the flickering light. The streets of Edo, lined with wooden stalls and bustling with kimono-clad pedestrians, were a vibrant backdrop to this underground art form. Irezumi, as documented in 19th century photographs at the Getty Center, became a masterpiece of color and detail, its prohibition only fueling its allure. The practice also influenced the Yakuza, who would later adopt full-body suits as a mark of their criminal brotherhood. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Edo's lantern-lit nights, reveals a culture where body art became a silent rebellion, a tradition that would endure as a cornerstone of Japanese tattooing for centuries. In the 1700s, across the forests and plains of North America, various indigenous tribes incorporated tattoos into their vision quest rituals and warrior traditions, marking the body with symbols of spiritual power. Tribes like the Lakota, Cherokee, and Haida used bone needles and natural pigments derived from plants like sumac and minerals like ochre to create tattoos that depicted animal spirits, such as eagles for vision or bears for strength. The air in a Lakota encampment would have been rich with the scent of sage smudging, bison hide, and the crackling of a ceremonial fire as a young warrior prepared for his vision quest, a solitary journey into the wilderness to seek guidance from the spirit world. The tattooing took place in a teepee, its buffalo hide walls painted with sacred symbols, the artist chanting softly as he worked. A bone needle, dipped in a pigment of crushed sumac berries, pierced the skin, leaving behind an eagle tattoo on the warrior's chest, its wings a prayer for clarity. The vision quest, a rite of passage for many tribes, involved fasting alone in nature for days, the warrior's dreams filled with visions of animal spirits that would guide him through life. Tattoos applied upon his return were a permanent record of these experiences, as well as his achievements in battle. Each mark a story of bravery or survival. Native American life was deeply communal, with days spent hunting bison, crafting, beadwork, and performing dances like the sun dance to honor the Great Spirit. The tattooing tradition varied across tribes. The Haida of the Pacific Northwest favored totemic designs, while the Cherokee in the Southeast used simpler patterns. These markings, documented by early European settlers, were believed to confer special powers, protecting the bearer from harm or enhancing his abilities in battle. The forests and plains, with their towering pines and endless grasslands, were a sacred landscape where every animal, plant, and stone held spiritual significance. The tattooing tradition, preserved in oral histories and archaeological finds like tattooed mummies, faced decline with European colonization as missionaries sought to erase indigenous practices. Yet, it endured in memory, a testament to the resilience of Native American cultures, where tattoos were a sacred dialogue with the divine. In 1769, Captain James Cook's voyages to the Pacific introduced the world to Polynesian tattooing, a practice that would forever change Western perceptions of body art. Cook, aboard the HMS Endeavour, arrived in Tahiti, where he and his naturalist, Joseph Banks, observed the local tattooing tradition known as tatau, a word that would evolve into tattoo in English. The air on a Tahitian beach would have been warm with the scent of sea salt, frangipani flowers, and roasting fish, as a tattoo artist worked on a warrior, his bone comb tapping rhythmically against the skin. The designs, intricate geometric patterns, were inked with a pigment of candlenut soot, covering the warrior's legs and arms, a testament to his rank and lineage. Cook's journals, along with Banks' detailed sketches, described the tatau process with fascination, noting its cultural significance. Tattoos marked a person's place in society, from chiefs to commoners. Tahitian life was vibrant, with days spent fishing in outrigger canoes, weaving pandanus mats and dancing under the stars to the beat of slit drums. The tattooing ritual, often performed during festivals, was a communal event, the artist's chants blending with the laughter of children and the hum of the ocean. Returning sailors, bearing Polynesian tattoos, sparked a craze in Europe, where the designs were seen as exotic souvenirs of a distant world. Cook's voyages, spanning 1768 to 1779, opened the Pacific to European exploration, but they also marked the beginning of cultural exchange and exploitation, as tattooing traditions were both admired and commodified. The Tahitian beach, with its turquoise waters and swaying palms, was a paradise that Cook's arrival would forever alter, as diseases and colonialism followed in his wake. The word tattoo, entering English via Banks' writings, became a global term, a linguistic bridge between Polynesia and the West. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Tahiti's sunlit shores, reveals the moment when body art crossed oceans, a tradition that would inspire generations of tattooists and enthusiasts, even as it faced the challenges of cultural appropriation and loss. In colonial America during the 1700s, tattoos served a grim purpose. They branded criminals with permanent marks of their crimes, a practice borrowed from European traditions of social control. Letters like T for theft, M for murder, and B for burglary were inked onto the hands or faces of offenders, using simple needles and Indian ink, a black pigment derived from soot. The air in a New England town square would have been sharp with the scent of pine tar, fresh cut. Hey! And the nervous sweat of a crowd as a criminal was publicly tattooed, his wrists bound to a wooden post. The process was quick but humiliating. A steel needle dipped in ink pierced the skin in sharp jabs, the letter T forming in crude strokes on the thief's hand, a mark he'd carry for life. Colonial society, rooted in Puritan values, was unforgiving. Crime was a sin, and punishment was a spectacle meant to deter others. The tattooed criminal, often a petty thief stealing to survive the harsh winters, was ostracized, his mark a barrier to employment or marriage. Life in the colonies was a struggle, with settlers clearing forests, planting corn, and building log cabins under the constant threat of famine and Native American raids. The town square, with its wooden stocks and gallows, was a center of justice and gossip, where the tattooed became outcasts, their faces a warning to the community. This practice, documented in historical records, mirrored European traditions like the branding of vagrants in England, but in America it took on a new intensity, reflecting the colony's harsh moral code. The tattooing was often performed by a blacksmith or jailer, the ink a gritty paste that stained the skin unevenly. The legacy of this practice, preserved in court documents and early American art, reveals a society where body art was a tool of shame, a stark contrast to its sacred role in other cultures. The tattooed criminal, shunned by his neighbors, often fled to the frontier, where the wilderness offered a chance to start anew, his mark a reminder of a past he could never escape. In the early 1800s, sailors in port cities like London, Boston, and New York developed a tattooing tradition that became the foundation of Western body art, nautical symbols. Swallows, for 5,000 nautical miles traveled, anchors, for crossing the Atlantic, and fully rigged ships for rounding Cape Horn, adorned their chests and arms, inked with sewing needles bound to sticks and dipped in India ink or lampblack. The air in a port city tattoo parlor would have been thick with the scent of tar, rum, and salt water, as sailors gathered after long voyages, their laughter mingling with the hum of the needle. The tattooing process was crude but meaningful. The needle, dipped in black ink, pierced the skin in quick jabs, forming a swallow's wings on a sailor's chest, each feather a testament to his journey. Sailors lived a perilous life, their days spent hauling ropes under the scorching sun, their nights in cramped bunks rocked by stormy seas. Tattoos were a badge of honor, a way to mark their achievements in a profession where survival was never guaranteed. A swallow tattoo, for instance, was a sailor's pride, earned after crossing vast oceans, while an anchor symbolized stability after braving the Atlantic's tempests. Port cities, with their bustling docks and smoky taverns, were hubs of maritime culture, where tattooists set up shop in back alleys, their parlors adorned with nautical charts and scrimshaw. The tradition, documented in photographs from the USS Olympia at the Library of Congress, became a rite of passage as sailors shared stories of shipwrecks, mutinies, and distant lands over mugs of ale. These nautical symbols, born in the age of sail, would influence Western tattooing for centuries, becoming iconic designs in the modern tattoo lexicon. The sailors, often far from home for years, found in tattoos a sense of belonging, their inked skin a map of their adventures. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of the 19th century maritime world, reveals a culture where body art was a storyteller, a tradition that would sail into the future as tattooing spread across the globe. By the 1840s, tattooing in the Western world took a professional turn, as artists like Martin Hildebrandt opened parlors in cities like New York, catering to sailors, soldiers, and early enthusiasts. Hildebrandt, who set up shop in 1846, used hand-poked methods with steel needles and homemade inks, black from soot, red from rust, working slowly and painfully to create designs like eagles, flags, and memorials. The air in Hildebrandt's parlor would have been gritty with the scent of coal smoke, ink, and the sweat of his clients, as the needle's sharp jab echoed in the small, cluttered space. The tattooing process was laborious, each design taking hours. The client's grunts a constant undercurrent to the artist's focused silence. New York in the 1840s was a city of growth and chaos. its streets alive with horse-drawn carriages, street vendors, and the shouts of dock workers unloading ships along the Hudson River. Sailors, fresh from voyages to the Caribbean or Europe, sought tattoos as mementos of their travels, while soldiers, preparing for conflicts like the Mexican-American War, chose patriotic designs to honor their service. Hildebrandt's parlor, a small room above a tavern, was filled with sketches of eagles, hearts, and anchors, the walls stained with ink and tobacco smoke. The tattooing tradition, documented in early American art like Reginald Marsh's paintings, marked a shift from makeshift tattooing to a professional craft, as artists began to see themselves as artisans rather than mere tradesmen. Clients, often working-class men, found in tattoos a way to express their identities in a rapidly industrializing world, where individuality was increasingly rare. The steel needle, a far cry from the bone combs of Polynesia, was a tool of precision, allowing for finer details that would pave the way for modern tattooing. Hildebrandt's legacy, preserved in historical records, set the stage for the tattoo boom of the late 19th century as body art moved from the margins to the mainstream. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a burgeoning America, reveals the birth of a profession where ink became a craft and tattoos a canvas for personal stories. From the 1850s to the 1890s, tattooed performers became sensations in Victorian circuses, drawing crowds eager to see their exotic, full-body art. Figures like Captain George Costantinus, who claimed to have been forcibly tattooed by savages, displayed thousands of images, animals, flowers, and mythical creatures, covering their bodies, inked with black and red pigments. The air in a circus tent would have been electric with the scent of sawdust, caramel apples, and the nervous excitement of the crowd, as Costantinus stepped into the spotlight, his tattoos shimmering under flickering gas lamps. The tattooing, often done by hand with steel needles, was a painful process, each design a testament to the performer's endurance, the ink a permanent record of their fabricated tales. Victorian society, obsessed with the exotic and the primitive, flocked to these sideshows where tattooed men and women were presented as curiosities, their bodies a canvas of otherness. The circus, with its striped tents and calliope music, was a world of spectacle where performers juggled fire, tamed lions, and displayed their inked skin to gasps and whispers. Costantinus, whose real story is murky, became a star under P.T. Barnum's banner, his tattoos a mix of truth and fiction, likely inked by professional tattooists rather than savages. The crowd, dressed in top hats and bustles, saw tattoos as a mark of the uncivilized, a stark contrast to their own buttoned-up world where propriety ruled. Yet, beneath the spectacle, these performers were often marginalized, their tattoos a source of both fame and ostracism. The tradition, documented in circus posters at Wikimedia Commons, reinforced tattoo's association with the savage, even as it introduced body art to a wider audience. The tattooed performer, standing on a wooden stage, was a living paradox, a figure of fascination and fear, whose inked skin told a story of survival in a world that both celebrated and shunned them. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of the Victorian circus, reveals the complex interplay of culture and perception where tattoos became a spectacle, paving the way for their eventual acceptance. In 1891, Samuel O'Reilly revolutionized tattooing with the invention of the electric tattoo machine, a device that would change the art form forever. Based on Thomas Edison's electric engraving pen, O'Reilly's machine used electromagnetic coils to drive needles up and down through an ink reservoir, dramatically increasing speed, reducing pain, and enabling more detailed designs. The air in O'Reilly's New York parlor would have been alive with the buzz of the machine, the scent of ink, and the faint hum of electricity as he inked a detailed rose on a client's arm, the needle's rapid motion a blur of precision. The tattooing process, once a slow and painful hand-poked affair, became a craft of efficiency, the machine's hum a new soundtrack for the tattooist's art. New York in the 1890s was a city of innovation, its streets lit by electric lamps, its skyline growing with skyscrapers, its people a mix of immigrants, workers, and dreamers. O'Reilly, a former sideshow tattooist, saw the potential in Edison's technology, adapting it to create a tool that could ink faster and with greater precision, allowing for intricate designs that hand-poking could never achieve. His clients, often sailors and working-class men, sought tattoos of roses, hearts, and names, memorials to loved ones or symbols of their lives. The parlor, a small room on the Bowery, was cluttered with ink bottles, sketches, and the faint glow of a gas lamp, the walls papered with drawings of O'Reilly's latest designs. The electric tattoo machine, patented in 1891 as noted by Tattoo Do, marked a turning point, as artists could now create detailed portraits, landscapes, and patterns in a fraction of the time. The innovation spread quickly, from New York to
London, as tattooists embraced the new technology, their parlors buzzing with the sound of progress. The machine's impact was profound, setting the stage for the modern tattoo industry, where speed and detail became the standard.
O'Reilly's legacy, preserved in historical patents, reveals a moment when tattooing became a true profession, its tools as modern as the city that birthed them. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a rapidly changing America, highlights the power of innovation, where a single invention transformed body art into a craft for the masses. In the late 19th century, a surprising tattoo craze swept through British aristocracy, briefly disrupting the art form's association with the lower classes. It began with Prince Edward, later King Edward VII, who, in 1862, received a Jerusalem cross tattoo during a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, sparking a trend among the elite. Figures like Jenny Churchill, mother of Winston Churchill, followed suit, bearing delicate tattoos by Japanese masters, often snakes or flowers inked with vibrant colors. The air in an opulent Victorian parlor would have been rich with the scent of rosewater, polished wood, and the faint tang of ink, as a Japanese artist worked with precision, his needles creating a snake design on Jenny's wrist. The tattooing process, often done with the tabori, hand-poking method, was a mark of status, the client's soft gasps a contrast to the parlor's elegance, ornate furniture, gas lamps, and silk drapes. Victorian high society, with its rigid rules and lavish balls, was a world of privilege, where the aristocracy sought new ways to express their individuality. Tattoos, once seen as the domain of sailors and criminals, became a fashionable secret, hidden beneath gloves and long sleeves, but whispered about at tea parties. Jenny Churchill's snake tattoo, a symbol of transformation, was a bold choice, reflecting her rebellious spirit in a society that prized conformity. The Japanese artists, often invited to London by wealthy patrons, brought with them the Irizumi tradition, their colorful inks and detailed designs a stark contrast to the crude black tattoos of the West. The craze, documented in historical photographs, was short-lived, fading by the early 1900s as tattoos returned to their lower-class stigma, but it marked a moment of cultural fusion where East met West on the skin of the elite. The parlors of Mayfair, with their velvet curtains and gilded mirrors, were an unlikely setting for this trend, where body art became a status symbol, however fleeting. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Victorian opulence, reveals the fluidity of cultural perceptions, where tattoos briefly crossed class boundaries, leaving a lasting mark on the art form's evolution. In the early 1900s, tattoos in prisons became a coded language, a way for inmates to communicate their histories and allegiances through ink. In Russian prisons, this practice reached new heights, with elaborate designs like cathedral tattoos, indicating the number of sentences, and stars on the knees, meaning I kneel to no one, inked with improvised tools, guitar strings, motors, and ink made from burnt plastic. The air in a Russian prison cell would have been dank with the scent of mold, stale sweat, and the acrid tang of burning plastic as a prisoner worked by candlelight, his makeshift needle buzzing against the skin. The tattooing process was dangerous, often leading to infections, but it was a mark of defiance, a way to assert identity in a system designed to strip it away. Prison life, especially in the harsh gulags of Siberia, was a brutal existence, with days spent in forced labor, mining coal, chopping wood, under the watchful eyes of guards. Tattoos were a form of resistance, a secret language that guards couldn't decipher, allowing inmates to claim power in a powerless world. A cathedral tattoo, with its domes representing years served, was a badge of survival, while a dagger through the neck signaled a murder committed. The tattooing took place in cramped cells, the walls scarred with graffiti, the flickering candle casting shadows on the inked skin. This practice, documented by The Guardian, spread across global prison systems, from Russia to the United States, where teardrop tattoos and gang symbols became common. The inmates, often serving life sentences, found in tattoos a way to tell their stories, their bodies a canvas of pain and pride. The early 1900s, a time of political upheaval in Russia, saw the rise of organized crime, with groups like the Thieves in Law adopting tattoos as a mark of their brotherhood. The legacy of prison tattoos, preserved in photographs and oral histories, reveals a subculture where body art became a language of survival, a tradition that would influence modern tattooing as it moved into the mainstream. In the bustling streets of Honolulu during the 1930s to 1970s, Norman Sailor Jerry Collins redefined Western tattooing, blending Japanese techniques with American boldness to create the iconic Americana style. Operating from his modest parlor on Hotel Street, Sailor Jerry inked sailors, soldiers, and locals with designs that became legendary. Patriotic eagles, pin-up girls, and nautical anchors, all rendered in vibrant, custom-mixed inks that refused to fade. The air in his parlor would have been thick with the scent of cigarette smoke, antiseptic, and the tang of ink, as the hum of his electric tattoo machine filled the room, its needle dancing across a sailor's back to form a soaring eagle clutching an American flag. Collins, who learned tattooing in the Navy and later studied under Japanese masters like Hori Chiyo, brought a new level of artistry to the craft. His inks, bright reds, deep blues, and vivid yellows, a stark contrast to the dull blacks of earlier decades. Honolulu in this era was a melting pot, its streets alive with the chatter of sailors on leave, the strum of ukuleles in bars, and the scent of leis sold by street vendors. Sailor Jerry's clients, often fresh from the Pacific Theater during World War II, sought tattoos as talismans of luck or memorials to fallen comrades, their stories unfolding as the needle worked its magic. A pin-up girl tattoo might symbolize a sweetheart left behind, while an anchor marked a sailor's pride in his trade. Collins' parlor, a narrow space crammed with flash art and Japanese prints, was a haven for those seeking ink with meaning. His gruff demeanor belying a deep respect for the art form, he pioneered sterilization techniques, using autoclaves to clean needles, a practice that would become standard in the industry, and his custom inks, mixed with secret formulas, set a new benchmark for color-fast tattoos. The 1930s to 1970s were a transformative time for tattooing, as the art moved from the margins to a recognized craft, thanks in part to Collins's influence. His style, documented in historical photos on Wikipedia, became the foundation of traditional American tattooing, its bold lines and vibrant colors a testament to his vision. Sailor Jerry's legacy, carried forward by his apprentices like Ed Hardy, bridged cultures and eras, bringing Japanese aesthetics to the West while honoring the rugged individualism of the American sailor. His tattoos, inked on the sunburnt skin of countless men, told stories of war, love, and survival. Their colors as vivid today as they were decades ago. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of mid-20th century Hawaii, reveals a pivotal moment when body art became a true craft. Its impact felt across the globe as tattooing entered a new era of creativity and respect. During the World Wars of 1914 to 1945, tattoos became a rite of passage for millions of servicemen, their inked skin a canvas of luck, identity, and memory. From the muddy trenches of the Western Front to the naval bases of the Pacific, soldiers and sailors sought tattoos as good luck charms, unit identifiers, and memorials for fallen comrades, often inked by tattoo shops near military bases, using improved electric machines and expanding color palettes. The air in a 1940s naval-based tattoo shop would have been heavy with the scent of salt water, engine oil, and the buzz of needles, as a sailor sat for a tattoo of his unit insignia, a snarling bulldog inked in red and black on his shoulder, a symbol of his Marine Corps pride. The tattooing process, now faster thanks to electric machines, was a moment of camaraderie. The needles hum a backdrop to stories of battles in Normandy or Guadalcanal, the client's laughter mingling with the clink of beer bottles. Military life during the World Wars was a grueling existence. Soldiers endured the terror of artillery barrages, the monotony of trench warfare, and the constant threat of death, while sailors braved U-boat attacks and typhoons on the high seas. Tattoos offered a small comfort, a way to assert individuality in a world of uniforms and orders. A soldier might choose a heart with his sweetheart's name, a reminder of home as he faced the horrors of the Somme, while a sailor might ink a mermaid for luck as he sailed through the Coral Sea. Tattoo shops, often set up in makeshift tents or back rooms near bases, were bustling hubs, their walls covered with flash art, eagles, skulls, and flags in patriotic reds, whites, and blues. The period saw a mass adoption of tattoos, as documented by Collectors Weekly, normalizing the practice among certain segments of society, while reinforcing its association with masculinity and patriotism. Servicemen, often young men far from home, found in tattoos a way to mark their service, their inked skin a badge of honor as they returned to civilian life, their stories etched in ink. The tattoo shops, filled with the sounds of laughter and the hum of machines, were a refuge, a place where the chaos of war could be momentarily forgotten. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of global conflict, reveals the power of body art to provide solace and identity, a tradition that would leave a lasting mark on tattoo culture as it moved into the modern era. In the 1950s and 1960s, tattooing faced a backlash as hepatitis outbreaks linked to unsanitary practices led to increased regulation and outright bans across the United States. New York City, in 1961, banned tattooing entirely, a prohibition that lasted until 1997, driven by fears of disease spread through dirty needles and ink. The air in a 1960s Brooklyn tattoo shop, just before the ban, would have been gritty with the scent of cheap cigarettes, antiseptic, and the buzz of an electric machine, as Coney Island Freddy inked a client's arm with a fading rose. The needle's hum, a stark reminder of the risks. The tattooing process, often performed in back rooms with unsterilized equipment, was a gamble. Needles reused without cleaning, ink shared between clients, the client's nervous sweat a testament to the era's lack of hygiene standards. The 1950s and 1960s were a time of post-war conformity in America, with suburban sprawl, drive-in movies, and the rise of rock and roll. But beneath the surface, tattooing remained a rebellious act, associated with sailors, bikers, and the counterculture. Hepatitis outbreaks, traced to parlors in cities like New York and Los Angeles, sparked public panic, as health officials documented cases of liver disease linked to contaminated needles, their reports fueling a moral crusade against tattoos. Tattoo shops, often small and dimly lit, were seen as dens of vice. Their clients, working-class men and women, viewed with suspicion by a society that prized cleanliness and order. The ban in New York, as noted by the Brooklyn Public Library, drove tattooing underground with artists operating in secret, their parlors hidden in basements or back alleys. The crackdown reinforced negative perceptions, linking tattoos even more strongly with criminality and deviance as the art form retreated to the margins. Yet, in the shadows, tattooists continued their craft, their resilience a testament to the enduring appeal of body art, even in the face of stigma and regulation. The streets of 1960s New York, with their neon signs and honking taxis, were a world apart from the tattoo parlors where the art form fought to survive. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a changing America, reveals the challenges faced by tattooing as it navigated health crises and societal fears, a struggle that would eventually lead to its modern resurgence. In 1960s Japan, the Yakuza, Japan's organized crime syndicates, embraced full-body Irezumi tattoos, elevating the art form to new heights of intricacy and symbolism. These bodysuits, often depicting folklore scenes like samurai battles or mythical dragons, covered everything except the hands, feet, and a vertical strip down the torso, inked by master artists using traditional hand tools over years of painful sessions. The air in a hidden Yakuza tattoo parlor would have been heavy with the scent of lamp-black ink, rice wine, and the faint tang of blood as a master artist worked with a tabori needle, his rhythmic pokes etching a dragon's scales onto a Yakuza member's back. The client's stoic silence, a mark of his loyalty. The tattooing process, often spanning dozens of sessions, was a test of endurance, the needle's sting a rite of passage for the Yakuza, whose lives were bound by codes of honor and violence. The 1960s were a time of rapid modernization in Japan, with Tokyo's neon-lit streets and bullet trains a stark contrast to the traditional world of the Yakuza, who operated in the shadows, controlling gambling, extortion, and the black market. Tattoos were a mark of their commitment, a rejection of mainstream society, their full-body suits hidden beneath tailored suits to avoid scrutiny. A dragon tattoo might symbolize power, a koi fish perseverance through hardship, each design a story of the wearer's life in the underworld. The parlors, often discreet rooms in Osaka or Tokyo's back alleys, were sacred spaces where the artist, known as a horishi, worked with reverence, his tools laid out on a bamboo mat, his chants invoking protection for the client. The Yakuza, as noted by Wikipedia, kept their tattoos secret. Even from family, their inked bodies a private oath to their brotherhood, a tradition that dated back to the Edo period but flourished in the 20th century. The tattooing process, using hand-poked tabori rather than electric machines, preserved the traditional art of Irezumi. Its painful application a symbol of the Yakuza's willingness to endure suffering for their cause. The streets of 1960s Japan, with their pachinko parlors and geisha houses, were a world of contrasts, where the Yakuza's tattoos remained a hidden art, their beauty known only to those within the syndicate. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of Japan's post-war transformation, reveals the intersection of tradition and rebellion, where body art became a mark of an outlawed brotherhood, its legacy enduring in the modern Yakuza culture. In the 1960s and 1970s, biker and punk subcultures in the West embraced tattoos as symbols of rebellion, rejecting the conformity of mainstream society with ink that screamed defiance. Motorcycle clubs like the Hells Angels and punk bands like the Sex Pistols adorned themselves with tattoos, club insignia, 1% diamonds, and anarchist symbols, often self-administered with crude tools like needles and India ink. The air in a 1970s punk club would have been electric with the scent of leather, beer, and the raw energy of a mosh pit, as a punk kid inked a jagged anarchist A on his arm with a safety pin, the needle's sting a badge of his nihilism. The tattooing process, often done in basements or back rooms, was a DIY affair. The ink a gritty paste of burnt plastic and ash. The client's grunts a soundtrack to the rebellion unfolding on their skin. The 1960s and 1970s were a time of upheaval in the West, with the Vietnam War, civil rights movements, and the rise of counterculture challenging societal norms. Bikers, roaring through small towns on their Harleys, lived on the edge, their tattoos, skulls, flames, and swastikas, a mark of their outlaw status. Their 1% tattoos, a nod to the American Motorcyclist Association's claim that 99% of bikers were law-abiding. Punks, meanwhile, rejected the establishment entirely, their music a raw scream against authority, their tattoos, crude crosses, anarchist symbols, and nihilistic slogans, a visual extension of their ethos. Tattoo parlors, often dive bars or makeshift studios, were hubs of the counterculture, their walls plastered with band posters and biker patches. The hum of electric machines a constant undercurrent to the chaos. The subcultures, as noted by Reddit, embraced tattoos as a way to shock and provoke, their inked skin a middle finger to the establishment, whether it was the government, the police, or the suburban ideal of the nuclear family. The streets of 1970s London or San Francisco, with their protests and punk gigs, were a battleground for these rebels, their tattoos a declaration of war on conformity. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a turbulent era, reveals the power of body art to define a movement. Where ink became a weapon of rebellion, its legacy felt in the modern tattoo renaissance that followed. The 1970s marked the beginning of a tattoo renaissance, as fine artists like Ed Hardy, Cliff Raven, and Mike Malone, protégés of Sailor Jerry, transformed tattooing into a legitimate art form, blending Japanese aesthetics with art school training. These pioneers moved beyond repetitive flash designs, creating custom tattoos that were as unique as the clients who bore them, using improved techniques and vibrant inks. The air in a 1970s tattoo convention, like the North American Tattoo Club in Sacramento, would have been buzzing with the scent of ink, patchouli oil, and the hum of electric machines, as Ed Hardy inked a detailed koi fish on a client's arm, its scales shimmering in oranges and blues. The tattooing process, now a blend of tradition and innovation, was a collaboration between artist and client. The needle's rapid buzz a soundtrack to their shared vision. The client's gasps a testament to the art's intensity. The 1970s were a time of cultural awakening in the West, with the counterculture of the 1960s giving way to a new appreciation for individuality and self-expression, from disco clubs to the rise of feminism. Tattoo parlors, once seedy back rooms, became studios, their walls lined with art prints and books on Japanese irezumi, the artists, many with formal art degrees, treating their work as a canvas rather than a trade. Hardy, trained under Sailor, Jerry and later in Japan, brought a painter's eye to tattooing, his designs, koi fish, dragons, and roses, a fusion of East and West, their vibrant colors a new standard for the industry. The tattoo convention, as noted by Manfred Kors on Wikipedia, was a turning point, where artists showcased their work to a growing audience, their custom tattoos attracting a new clientele, professionals, artists, and students seeking personalized ink. The parlors, often in cities like San Francisco or New York, were spaces of creativity, their floors littered with sketches and ink bottles, their clients a mix of hippies, rock stars, and curious suburbanites. This renaissance, born in the 1970s, set the stage for tattooing's modern acceptance. As body art moved from the margins to the mainstream, its artists recognized as true creatives. The streets of 1970s America, with their bell-bottoms and protest signs, were a fitting backdrop for this transformation, where tattoos became a symbol of personal freedom, their legacy felt in every modern tattoo studio. In the 1980s, the neo-tribal movement emerged, as artists like Leo Zulueta revived and reinterpreted indigenous tattoo styles from Polynesia, Borneo, and Maori traditions, creating bold black patterns that resonated with a new generation seeking our primal connections. These tattoos, often thick geometric designs and swirling motifs, were inked with modern electric machines, but drew inspiration from ancient techniques, their stark black ink a nod to the past. The air in a 1980s tattoo studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan would have been alive with the scent of ink, leather, and the buzz of needles as Leo Zulueta inked a swirling tribal design on a client's shoulder, its bold lines evoking the ocean waves of Polynesia. The client's steady breaths, a testament to the art's intensity. The tattooing process, using fine-line needles and black ink, was a modern take on tradition. The machine's hum a contrast to the ancient chants that once accompanied such designs, the client's skin a canvas for cultural reclamation. The 1980s were a time of excess and reinvention in the West, with neon fashion, synth-pop music, and a growing interest in global cultures, from yoga to world music. The neo-tribal movement, as noted by Joanne Natalia Aquino on Wikipedia, appealed to those seeking a connection to perceived primal human experiences. Their tattoos a way to reclaim a sense of identity in a rapidly globalizing world. Zulueta, inspired by Polynesian and Borneo designs, created tattoos that were both modern and ancient, spirals, triangles, and waves that echoed the patterns of Tomoko or Samoan tatau. their black ink a stark contrast to the colorful designs of the time. Tattoo studios, often in college towns like Ann Arbor, were spaces of experimentation, their walls covered with photos of indigenous tattoos and anthropological texts. Their clients a mix of students, artists, and spiritual seekers. The movement, while celebrated for its artistry, was also controversial, with some indigenous communities criticizing the appropriation of their sacred designs, a debate that continues today. The streets of 1980s America, with their MTV broadcasts and punk rock clubs, were a fitting backdrop for this revival, where tattoos became a bridge to the past, their bold lines a testament to the enduring power of cultural memory. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a decade of reinvention, reveals the complexities of cultural exchange, where body art became a canvas for both celebration and contention. In the 2000s, reality TV shows like Miami Ink. 2005 and LA Ink. 2007 brought tattooing into living rooms worldwide, transforming tattooists into celebrity artists and shifting public perception of body art. These shows, focusing on custom tattoos and emotional client stories, downplayed the counterculture aspects of tattooing, presenting it as a legitimate form of artistic expression. The air in the Miami Ink studio would have been vibrant with the scent of ink, antiseptic, and the buzz of needles, as Ami James inked a memorial portrait of a client's late father on their chest, the client's tears a testament to the emotional weight of the moment. The tattooing process, captured on camera with modern electric machines and a wide color palette, was a spectacle of artistry. The needles hum a backdrop to heartfelt conversations, the client's story unfolding as the ink took shape. The 2000s were a time of reality TV dominance, with shows like Survivor and American Idol captivating audiences, and tattoo shows tapped into this trend, offering a glimpse into the lives of artists and their clients. Miami Ink., as noted by Flickr on Wikipedia, showcased the work of artists like Ami James and Chris Nunez, while LA Ink. Made Kat Von D a household name, her gothic style and emotional tattoos resonating with viewers. Tattoo studios, now brightly lit and professional, became stages, their walls covered with art prints and client photos, their clients a mix of everyday people, mothers, teachers, veterans, seeking ink with meaning. The shows highlighted the artistry of tattooing, from photorealistic portraits to vibrant florals, their focus on personal stories helping to destigmatize tattoos, as viewers saw the humanity behind the needle. Tattoo parlors, once hidden in back alleys, became mainstream destinations. Their appointment books filled with clients inspired by TV, their artists now recognized as creatives rather than outcasts. The streets of 2000s Miami or Los Angeles, with their palm trees and bustling nightlife, were a fitting backdrop for this transformation, where tattoos became a symbol of self-expression, their acceptance a testament to the power of media. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a new millennium, reveals the moment when body art went mainstream, its artists elevated to stardom, their work a bridge between the personal and the public. In the 2010s, tattooing underwent a revolution as artists introduced fine art techniques, watercolor effects, photorealism, geometric abstraction, and pointillism, turning skin into museum-quality canvases. Improved machines, needle configurations, and specialized inks enabled unprecedented detail and color complexity as university-trained artists brought formal techniques to the tattoo world. The air in a 2010s tattoo studio in Los Angeles would have been clean with the scent of antiseptic, ink, and the buzz of a high-end tattoo machine, as an artist inked a hyper-realistic portrait of a wolf on a client's forearm, its fur so lifelike it seemed to ripple, the client's steady breaths a testament to the art's precision. The tattooing process, now a blend of technology and artistry, used fine-line needles and a spectrum of inks, grays for shading, blues for depth. The machine's hum, a symphony of creation. The client's skin, a canvas for a masterpiece. The 2010s were a time of digital innovation, with social media platforms like Instagram showcasing tattoo art to a global audience, and tattoo conventions in cities like London and New York drawing thousands. Artists, as noted by Reddit, experimented with styles that blurred the lines between fine art and body art. Watercolor tattoos with their soft gradients, geometric designs with their precise lines, and photorealistic portraits that looked like photographs. Tattoo studios, now sleek and modern, were spaces of creativity, their walls covered with art portfolios and awards. Their clients a mix of art collectors, celebrities, and enthusiasts seeking one-of-a-kind ink. The artists, many with degrees in fine art or illustration, treated each tattoo as a bespoke piece, their work displayed in galleries as well as on skin, their needles a brush for the 21st century. The tattoo convention, with its buzzing crowds and flashing cameras, was a celebration of this new era, where tattoos were no longer just body art, but high art, their beauty recognized by museums and critics alike. The streets of 2010's Los Angeles, with their street art and hipster cafes, were a fitting backdrop for this transformation, where tattoos became a medium for innovation, their legacy a testament to the art form's evolution. By the 2020s, tattoos had become normalized worldwide, with nearly 30% of Americans sporting at least one, a trend mirrored globally, as medical advances like laser removal, microencapsulated inks, and ephemeral tattoos, designed to fade, reduced the permanence concerns. The air in a 2020s tattoo studio in New York would have been fresh with the scent of antiseptic, ink, and the buzz of a state-of-the-art machine, as an artist inked an ephemeral watercolor design on a client's wrist, its soft pinks and blues, meant to fade in a year, the client's smile a testament to the freedom of temporary ink. The tattooing process, now a blend of art and science, used advanced needles and inks, microencapsulated pigments that break down over time. The machines hum a backdrop to the client's story of wanting ink without lifelong commitment, their wrist a canvas for fleeting beauty. The 2020s were a time of inclusivity and innovation, with social media platforms like TikTok showcasing tattoo trends and tattoo parlors in cities like New York and Tokyo catering to a diverse clientele, teenagers, professionals, and retirees alike. The normalization, as noted by Ephemeral, was driven by changing attitudes, as tattoos became a form of self-expression rather than rebellion. Their acceptance reflected in workplaces, schools, and even religious institutions. Medical advances, like laser removal that left no scars and ephemeral inks that faded naturally, made tattoos less daunting, their temporary nature appealing to a generation wary of permanence. Tattoo studios, now sleek and welcoming, were spaces of inclusivity, their walls covered with digital screens displaying designs, their clients a mix of first-timers and veterans seeking everything from minimalist dots to sprawling murals. The tattoo parlor, with its bright lights and friendly staff, was a far cry from the seedy shops of the past. Its clients a testament to tattooing's mainstream status. The streets of 2020's New York, with their electric scooters and virtual reality ads, were a fitting backdrop for this new era, where tattoos became a universal language, their innovation a symbol of a world embracing change. This chapter of tattoo history, set against the backdrop of a futuristic decade, reveals the culmination of tattooing's journey, where body art became a commonplace expression, its future as boundless as the creativity it inspires.